Hello everybody, this is Grayson. Um, I wanted to kind of start with showing my creative process and how I edited this picture, but before I get into that, I'd like to talk about what I did with this picture. Now, I commute to the city, so I take the train, and yesterday, which it might be a few days from now by the time this gets online, but yesterday, as of recording this, there was a really interesting sunset with some really detailed clouds, as you can see here, and I wanted to capture that. And all I had on me was my Essential PH1 phone, which, early reviews had said had a terrible camera. Well, the camera doesn't make the photographer does, and Plus Essential has done a lot of improving on the camera itself, and you can see here the picture turned out pretty well. I used HDR mode to capture as much detail and color as I could, and I used the stock camera, not the Google camera port that everybody recommends. I wanted to capture as much detail as I could. That's why I used HDR mode, and that's part of the thought process I'm going to cover in editing this picture to bring it out even further. So I have Snapseed open already, as you can see, and the first thing Snapseed wants to do is have you pick a look or a preset, so to speak, at the bottom here. I don't like doing that. I like the creative process. I like to be in control. So I'm going to show you my creative process with the tools over here. And I start by using Tune Image. And if you haven't used Snapseed before, you might think, well, where are the tools? Where are the Tune Image tools? Snapseed works with a very touch-friendly interface, and you touch the screen, and as you drag up and down, the tools become available. And you can see I can select between a number of different basic exposure tools and some white balance type tools. Basically, it's a little bit more simplified than that. I tend to start with this magic wand at the bottom to kind of give an automatic adjustment as a starting ground. I don't rely on that. I like to be a little bit more creative there, but at least gets me in the ballpark for a correct exposure. And then I'll go in, and for this picture I bumped the saturation just a little bit to bring the color out some more. And I don't want to go too much. See, if I go too much, it's really orange. It looks unnatural, and I don't think it adds to the picture. So I go with a subtle warming, or subtle saturation. And then I'm going to come and do a little bit subtle with the warmth. Now there's another tool I'm going to push those a little bit further on, but I don't like to start pushing that too far too early, because some of the other tools I use might affect how I adjust that. Now what I do also want to do with this is, there's not a lot of detail in some of these shadows and darker areas, and what I'll do here first is take the ambience up, and this gives us a little bit more brightness across the board, and if I feel I need to, I'll do the same with the shadows. If you want to see a before and after as well, the top right corner has kind of a square with a line through it. If you touch that and hold, you get a before. When you let go, you get an after. So you can kind of see how much has improved already. I'm going to stop here with this tool and hit the check mark, but I'm not done yet. I'm going to come back to tools, and I like to improve the details a little bit. And structure brings out the finer details, but if you go too far, you start to see some of the noise in the picture, and it gets a little over sharpened, so I don't go too far on that. And then I'll come to the sharpen and do a little bit of sharpening as well. And if you want to see a before and after, you can see the clouds are a little bit more detailed and brought out a bit more, as well as the texturing on the platform and the train itself. And I'll hit the check mark again and come back to tools. And then I like to use tonal contrast as well. Now the default setting here is way too much contrast. The highlights I don't play with a lot, but I might scale back and forth just to kind of see where the happy medium is. And I kind of like that right around 20 for this sample right here. And if I scroll up or down, I can choose the midtones. By default, midtones is always at 50, and that's a little high for me. So I'll bring this down, and I think with the picture I posted earlier of this before I recorded it was right around 30. And I might play with the lows a bit too, just to kind of see where I'm happy, and I might keep it right around there, mid-20s. And it still looks very detailed, but it's a little over sharp, and I'll address that here in a second. So I'll press the check mark. I'm going to come back to tools, and one thing I notice is it's not perfectly straight, so I'm going to use perspective to correct that. And what's nice here is you can drag up or down to correct your tilt up and down, which I'm not going to play with. I like where our up and down tilt is on this image. But if you look at the details in the tile and the brick in the ground on the platform, it's not perfectly straight, and some people like myself can be a little bit bothered by that, and that's not it's not for everybody. Not everyone needs to fix this, but I'm going to. So if I drag left and right, you can see that it tilts the picture and skews it a little bit. So I'm going to fix this so that the tiles are a little bit more straight. And again, we can do a before and after, and it's a subtle difference, but I think it makes a big impact. And I'll press the check mark again. And a moment ago, I mentioned that it's still a little over sharp, and I don't use this tool often. I use it as a softening tool when I need to, and that is the Glamour Glow. And by default, that is way too intense. So I'm going to ignore these presets at the bottom, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't worry about those. I'm going to take this glow down. I don't recall where I set it before, so I'll play around with it here a little bit, and I might keep it right around the upper 40s. It might not be exactly what I had, but you can see it softens the image a little bit. And in the other picture I used before, I did bring the saturation up a little bit, but I'm happy with it right now. I'm not going to play with that. And same with warmth. I might see how much warm we can get it, but actually taking the warmth down I like, but the image I used earlier, I brought the warmth up just a little bit, and I might not for this one. But everybody's preference is different. So I'll hit the check mark and come back to tools, and I may or may not add a subtle vignette. This is a little bit of a cheat. It's a tacky. I like to use it sometimes. It's not always appropriate, and negative 50 is sometimes too intense. I use it more as a tool to take away from the borders and edges and draw your attention somewhere towards the middle. I don't use it for every picture, and a lot of people do, and it's a preference thing. And if we press this button in the top right corner, the before and after, we can kind of see the difference with that. And I'm going to bring it up a little bit more. And I'll hit the check mark again. And here's our finished product. You're welcome to play with other tools just to see what else you can do with it. And if you tap and hold on the image, you can see the before and the after. You can see it's a lot more vibrant, and the details are brought out a lot more. You can also come to this button at the top that has squares with an arrow on it right here, and come to View Edits. And I might come back to one of my first steps, the Tune Image step, tap it again, and I can come to these sliders here and re-edit that step. And I might decide ambience is too low, and I'll bring this up even further. Maybe shadows is too low. I'll bring that up even further. Press the check mark, and I can come to the top step and just see what the difference is. And you can play with those other steps and fine-tune your image a little bit further. So here again, our initial image and our final edits. Once you're finished, you can tap done at the top left corner. If you want to share it directly from here, you can hit the share button right there and send it to any service that you want to.